Carol Hamilton gazed out the window, the morning sun pouring through sheer curtains, painting golden stripes across the floor of her condominium. The city below was already alive, cars rushing, horns blaring, joggers weaving through sidewalks, but Carol remained still, bracing herself mentally for the day ahead. Her smartphone buzzed with notifications. She picked it up, scrolling through her work emails. Despite it being Sunday morning, 3 urgent client messages demanded her attention. "I'll deal with those later," she muttered under her breath, pulling her chestnut brown hair into a neat ponytail. After 15 years in the real estate business, Carol had built her reputation brick by brick. She wasn't just another consultant, she was a strategist, a fixer, a woman whose sharp instincts had transformed struggling listings into million-dollar closings. Her name alone reassured clients. Yet, for all the admiration she received in professional circles, her own family had never looked at her with the same pride. From the bedroom doorway, her husband, Michael, leaned casually against the frame. His eyes softened when he looked at her. "Are you ready for today?" Carol turned slightly, offering him a wry smile. "Just like always, another perfect family day with my mother, father, and Diana." The sarcasm wasn't lost on him. He stepped closer, wrapping his arm gently around her shoulders. They had made a choice early in their marriage: no children, focusing instead on their careers and the freedom that came with it. Michael had never once questioned that decision, but Carol's family, especially her mother, Martha, considered it a selfish, even shameful choice. "Just look at Diana," Martha would always say, her tone dripping with comparison. Diana, the younger sister by 4 years, was Martha's golden child. Working at a travel agency, she wasn't particularly ambitious, but she was obedient, sweet, always available. She showed up for every family dinner, every gathering, every errand her mother requested, and for that, Martha worshipped her. Carol, on the other hand, career-driven, constantly juggling deadlines, sometimes missing birthdays, was cast as the cold, ungrateful one. "How long will you stay today?" Michael asked quietly. "As short as possible," Carol admitted. "I'll be back by evening. I have a major meeting first thing tomorrow." He kissed her forehead, a soft gesture of reassurance. "You'll survive. You always do. I'll be at the office all day, but I'll meet you at home for dinner." Carol nodded, grateful for the unwavering support in his eyes. Michael understood better than anyone how complicated her family ties were, bound by love, yes, but knotted with resentment and years of unspoken expectations. On the drive, Carol let her thoughts wander. Her father, George, came to mind. Since retiring, he spent his days tending his garden or fishing at the lake. He was a gentle soul, a man who found peace in silence, yet his voice rarely carried weight in the family. Martha's opinions always overshadowed his. Deep down, Carol knew her father admired her success, but he never dared praise her openly. In Martha's presence, any acknowledgement of Carol's achievements was treated as disloyalty. As she turned onto Sunset Boulevard, Carol's heart tightened. The familiar neighborhood appeared like a preserved memory: the tree-lined streets, the manicured lawns, the 2-story homes that carried echoes of childhood summers. At the end of the street stood her family house, inherited from her grandparents. Its white painted porch, wide front yard, and old-fashioned shutters gave it a timeless charm. Few people outside the family knew the truth, that the deed to the property listed Carol's name alongside her parents'. Her grandfather had insisted on it, ensuring the house remained partly hers. Carol rarely dwelled on that fact. To her, the house was her parents' domain, the stage where every family drama played out. But sometimes, when she felt particularly invisible, the knowledge of her ownership simmered inside her like an ember, small but alive. She parked in the driveway and inhaled deeply, bracing herself. Today was supposed to be a family trip, arranged weeks ago by Martha as part of her bonding traditions. Carol had rolled her eyes when she first heard of it, but she had reluctantly agreed. A promise was a promise. Before she could ring the bell, excited barking erupted from inside. A smile tugged at her lips despite herself. Buddy, the golden retriever, had always been the one member of the household happy to see her. The doorknob turned easily under her hand, unlocked. That in itself was unusual. Martha was meticulous about locking everything. Carol stepped inside and called, "I'm here." Silence. Buddy came bounding toward her, tail wagging, eyes gleaming with recognition. Carol knelt, scratching behind his ears. At least someone's glad I came, she whispered. But where were the others? She checked her watch. 8:15. Exactly the time Martha had ordered everyone to gather for breakfast before leaving. The living room glowed with soft sunlight. The antique figurines Martha collected sat neatly in their glass cabinet. Everything was in place, except everyone was missing. Carol wandered into the kitchen. The coffee maker sat half full, the pot still warm. She frowned. They had been here recently. Buddy padded after her, whining softly, as if trying to draw her attention. "What is it, boy?" she murmured, following him upstairs. The bedrooms told the same story. Beds made, closets closed, but odd signs of disruption. Martha's vanity table was cluttered with makeup items, uncharacteristically scattered. Diana's room was tidy but vacant, the faint scent of perfume still lingering. Carol's unease grew. No note, no text, nothing. Back downstairs, Buddy planted himself by the front door, tail wagging impatiently, as if waiting for her to grab his leash. Carol reached for her phone, intending to call her mother. Before she could, the screen lit up. Incoming call, Mom. Relief washed over her. She answered quickly. Mom, where are you? I came on time, but the house is. Carol. Martha's cheerful voice rang through the line, overlaid with sounds of laughter and crashing waves. Switch to video call, darling. Carol blinked, confused, but pressed the button. The screen filled with the sight of her parents and Diana, standing on the deck of a gleaming cruise ship. All three wore sunglasses and wide smiles. Surprise, they shouted in unison. The world tilted beneath Carol's feet. She felt her breath catch, her expression shifting rapidly from shock, to disbelief, to simmering anger. "What is this?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Martha beamed, oblivious. "We're going on a cruise, 2 whole weeks in the Caribbean. Diana found an incredible deal, but there were only 3 tickets. Since you're always so busy, we didn't want to bother you." George shifted uncomfortably but added softly, "We thought it was best." Carol's stomach clenched. "So you arranged a family trip, without me? You let me drive all the way here, thinking we'd spend the day together, when really—" Martha's smile faltered for just a moment. "Well, actually, we wanted you to watch Buddy for us. Dogs aren't allowed on ships. You understand, don't you?" "Take care of the dog," Diana chimed in, laughing, her voice breezy, dismissive. "You'll do a better job than a kennel. And don't worry, we'll bring you something special from duty free." Carol's throat tightened. She stared at the 3 faces on the screen, the faces of her own family, radiant and carefree, while leaving her behind like an afterthought, like she was staff, not blood. "When are you back?" she asked finally. "In 2 weeks, Martha said cheerfully. "I emailed you the details. Buddy's food is in the cabinet. His walks twice a day. Oh, and Mrs. Jones next door will check in sometimes. Isn't this wonderful?" Carol looked down at Buddy, who wagged his tail as if unaware of the betrayal unraveling around them. She drew in a long breath. "All right," she said evenly. "Have a good time." "Thank you, dear. You're always so dependable," Martha replied, blowing a kiss at the camera before hanging up. The call ended. Silence flooded the house. Carol sank onto the sofa. Buddy rested his head in her lap, gazing up at her with loyal, trusting eyes. "It's just you and me now, Buddy," she whispered, her voice cracking. The rage built slowly, curling in her chest like smoke. She rose and walked deliberately to the living room bookshelf. With steady fingers, she pulled down an old leather folder. Inside was the deed to the house. Her eyes scanned the document, her name, as co-owner, printed in black and white, a legal truth her family never acknowledged, never respected. Her phone buzzed again. "Michael. How's the family trip going?" his voice asked lightly when she answered. Carol closed her eyes. "They left. They went on a cruise. They didn't even tell me." Michael's pause was heavy, filled with sympathy and restrained anger. "That's cruel. Carol, are you coming home?" She glanced around the empty house, at Buddy watching her, at the silent rooms filled with years of favoritism and exclusion. A strange calm settled over her. "No," she said slowly. I think I'll stay. I have some thinking to do. After ending the call, she opened her laptop, the screen's glow reflecting in her steely eyes. Her fingers moved quickly, searching legal databases, real estate listings, and market reports. Buddy curled at her feet as if sensing the shift in her mood. Carol whispered, almost to herself, almost like a vow, "This will be a gift from the abandoned." To the house's spaciousness and atmosphere, especially the backyard with its open greenery and the living room with its warm brick fireplace, Carol felt a quiet sense of closure. It was the last time she would see the house in this light, dressed with memories that were never truly hers. Perfect for this family, she whispered to Buddy as they left after the Wilsons' first viewing. The dog wagged his tail, unaware of the significance of her words. Later, she told him more firmly, "The 2 children will play with you here. They'll bring the joy this house never gave me." That same evening, Carol received a call from James, her lawyer. The Wilsons had made an offer, slightly higher than the asking price, with clean terms meant to avoid competition. It was an unusual kindness in the ruthless real estate market. Without hesitation, Carol accepted. For the first time in years, she felt that the universe was on her side. "That was remarkably quick," she murmured later, sitting on the sofa with Buddy curled beside her. She stroked his head thoughtfully. "But I think this is the right thing to do. It's time to let go." The following days were consumed by preparation. Carol began sorting through the house's belongings, her hands moving through the past with careful precision. Personal mementos, her childhood photos, trinkets from school, gifts from long-forgotten birthdays, went into her own boxes. Her parents' belongings were carefully separated, each labeled neatly and packed into containers destined for the storage unit she had rented nearby. At one point, she paused with an old photo album in her hands. Inside were pictures of her and Diana as children, rare moments where they had smiled side by side. For a brief second, Carol's resolve wavered. "Should I throw this away?" she whispered, but instead, she closed the book gently and tucked it into her own box. As the closing date approached, Carol's new reality began to take shape. She checked into her condominium, confirming that it was indeed pet-friendly. She bought Buddy a new bed, shiny food bowls, and even a few toys. Martha continued to send cheerful photos from the Caribbean, messages filled with palm trees, cocktails, and captions like "Coming home soon. Can't wait to be back." Carol read each message without reply, her silence a private declaration of independence. The day before closing, Carol signed the last of the paperwork at James's office. The legal documents, stamped and verified, finalized everything. Holding the pen, she felt the weight of her decision, but no regret. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her dignity and severing ties that had strangled her spirit for far too long. "We're moving tomorrow," she told Buddy that night. His tail thumped against the floor as if in agreement. The next morning, Carol took one last walk through the house. In her parents' bedroom, she placed a small card on the pillow. Its message was simple, sharp, and final: a gift from the abandoned. A text pinged on her phone. It was from her mother. "Coming home tomorrow. Can you pick us up at the airport?" Carol stared at it for a moment before setting the phone aside. On the kitchen table, she left another card. This one listed the address of the storage facility where their belongings were kept, along with a copy of the invoice. "Not exactly cheap," she whispered with a wry smile. By noon, Carol stood by the front door with Buddy on his leash. The Wilson family's car pulled into the driveway. The children's laughter spilled out as they jumped from the back seat. "Mrs. Hamilton, thank you so much." Mrs. Wilson said warmly as she approached. Her husband remained by the car, overseeing their luggage, while their children darted toward the garden. "This house feels like the perfect place for our new beginning." Carol pressed the keys into her hand with a calm smile. "It's for a wonderful family. Please take good care of it." "Of course," Mrs. Wilson promised, her eyes softening as she glanced at her children racing across the lawn. "It's the perfect place for them to grow up." Carol walked to her car without looking back immediately. When she finally did, she saw the Wilsons stepping into the doorway of their new home, laughter echoing in the air. The sight tugged at her heart, but it wasn't regret she felt, it was release. "Well, Buddy," she said as they got into her car, "our new life begins now." She drove toward her condominium, her folder of documents resting securely on the passenger seat. proof that everything had been carried out legally and meticulously. Through the rear-view mirror, she caught one last glimpse of the Wilson children running through the garden, filling the home with the kind of joy she had never known there. That evening, Carol unpacked the essentials in her cozy apartment. Buddy circled the living room before settling on his new bed. Content. From the window, Carol gazed at the skyline of Los Angeles, its lights shimmering against the dusk. "Our castle, Buddy," she whispered, "at least for now." Later, over dinner with Michael, she revealed everything. He listened in astonishment, then broke into a smile of admiration. "I'd pay to see their reaction when they walk up to the house," he laughed. Carol shook her head, smiling faintly. "I don't need to see it, I already know." That night, lying in bed with Buddy curled beside her, Carol felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Martha, George, and Diana were finishing their luxurious vacation. 2 weeks in the Caribbean had bronzed their skin and filled their bags with souvenirs. That was the perfect trip. Martha sighed as the taxi drove them back into their quiet Silver Lake neighborhood. "Thank you for arranging it, Diana." Diana grinned smugly. Perks of working at a travel agency. "Still, I almost feel sorry for Carol, stuck here, looking after the dog." "She'll manage," Martha said dismissively. "Besides, we bought her a souvenir." George frowned slightly as he stared out the window. "It is strange she hasn't replied to any of our messages." "She's always so busy," Martha shrugged. "She probably didn't have time." The taxi turned onto their familiar street, but something felt off. "The garden looks different," George murmured. Flowers had been replanted, and the shrubs were no longer as neatly arranged. Martha frowned. "Did Carol try landscaping?" she muttered. As the taxi stopped, they gathered their luggage and walked to the front door. George slid his key into the lock. It didn't turn. "That's odd," he said, frowning. "The key won't fit." "Let me try," Martha insisted, but the result was the same. The lock had been changed. Before they could argue further, the door opened. A woman stood in the doorway, her children peeking curiously from behind her. "Hello," she said with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" "This is our house," Martha stammered, her face paling. The woman's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, but we bought this house last week." George stepped forward, his voice rising. "That's impossible. We've lived here for over 30 years. At that moment, a man appeared behind her. His expression was calm but firm. "You must be the Hamilton family," he said. "We're the Wilsons. And yes, it's true. Carol Hamilton sold us this house." Martha's face turned crimson. She had no right. The man's eyes narrowed. "Actually, she did. Everything was done legally. The lawyers confirmed it. The documents are valid." And in that instant, the Hamiltons realized, while they had been sipping cocktails on sunlit beaches, Carol had rewritten the future of their home forever.